Hello there, folks. My name's Dustin Cormier. This is another episode of How to Rock Spirit. Today, I'd like to just say a little word talking about ayahuasca. It's something I like to talk about. Lately, in my explorations on this channel and in general, I'm trying to combine the concepts of psychedelics with classical yoga. And the first caveat that I should give is that right now I am still an apprentice with my Kriya Yoga lineage. In particular, and I should say that I'm very individualistic in regards to this. I'm the only person in my lineage of Kriya Yoga who thinks this way about psychedelics, so far as I've seen. I know that there are others, and actually I've met others, but in terms of authorities, I'm not an authority. I'm only a first-year apprentice in my lineage. But my lineage comes from Yogananda, self-realization, and Paramahansa Yogananda's whole lineage of gurus. And the first thing I'd like to say in this regard is that I've recently come into a deep, full absorption into yoga in a way that I never have. And so I feel ultimately, final point that I would make on this is that psychedelics needs yoga much more than yoga needs psychedelics. I think psychedelics are a useful adjunct, and I think that it has the capacity to bring a lot of people on the path. The problem is that psychedelics is, no matter how you dice it or slice it, it's an external object. It does not come from within inside of ourselves. DMT is a funny one in this regard because it technically does come in from inside us. But if you're ingesting a substance, even if it's one that is already inside us, like DMT, it's still coming from without. You're having an experience, and it's happening to you. You are not happening to it. And this is the problem with psychedelics in terms of its relationship to yoga. Because yoga has to involve the will of the individual in order to truly be yoga. And what the individual is looking to unite with is using their will through the techniques and the will of the Manipura chakra, the solar plexus chakra, in order to come into the fullest realization of their chitta, of their deepest consciousness, of their inner light, of their soul, of their spirit. Everybody has a way of applying themselves to the practice, the objective, the techniques of yoga. There's the objectives, and then there's the subjects using them. I often use the Icarus figure as an important metaphor with this. Icarus was the guy who had wings in Greek times. He wanted to fly close to the sun. The sun is the highest challenge to our soul, is meaningful action to the soul. And everybody has to have, it is a different subject. Everybody goes towards this dharma, the agni of the fire of the soul, of the most meaningful action for the soul, in different ways. This is going to mean different things. Everyone's got a different dharma. So if we just only practice the techniques in a obsessive way, we're going to be like Icarus. We're going to get burned by the sun. And we're going to develop a negative association with trying to be on track in life. We're going to get a dry feelings of dryness when we think about yoga. And that's not really how what yoga is supposed to be. So, that being said, everybody has a different way of applying themselves to these techniques. And psychedelics have a way of, I would negate psychedelics. This is what a lot of people in the yoga community do. Overall, it's like trying to pull a thorn out with another thorn. Once you pull it out, you throw it away because you don't need it anymore. But if that thorn helps you get the consciousness of the thorn that's inside you, psychedelics can be useful. So there are many people who want to tap into the holotropic spheres of consciousness through psychedelics in a safe and controlled way. And that's why I do advocate for psychedelics being legal and it being done institutionally for those who have real difficult issues, who are very rigid, who have PTSD, and who have difficulty understanding the usefulness of their consciousness. The usefulness of, what am I trying to say? For those who have difficulty realizing the limits of their present frame of consciousness. Because psychedelics have a way of illuminating things through our own internal reality. And that being said, I am still somebody who likes to occasionally do psychedelics. I'm somebody who will occasionally work with ayahuasca or with sacred psychedelic mushrooms, especially in combination with yoga. But it's not something that I would recommend anybody chase. This is how I would like to describe it, and this is how I'm going to describe it in a book that I'm writing in the coming future. I'm going to write about my experiences going to Peru and doing ayahuasca. And this is one of the things that I've written in my intro about this. Ayahuasca, because of the way of its hypnagogic nature, it can cause us to pour into dimensions of our consciousness which we would not move towards through our own devices. And this is for better or worse. It's hypnagogic, and it can even act like hypnosis. The problem is that when, imagine going to a hypnosis doctor and they do these different things that pull out these sensations inside of you, but you didn't have the doctor there to describe and explain what it is that is being pulled out of you. Let's say you forgot that you were abused by your father when you were like 5 years old, and it caused you to have a mistrust with authority. And it's something that you've buried in the recesses of your memory, and it's a reflex inside you that you feel every time your boss walks into the door, but you have no idea. It's nowhere in your conscious mind. A doctor can bring that out of you and explain it to you, and then you can use self-inquiry to understand how you can reintegrate that maligned neuroprogram from childhood. With psychedelics, unless you've got a very well-trained shaman or a doctor or somebody who's helping you through these kinds of things, you might have this experience and see these things, and it might actually be illuminating for you. It's important that the world of psychedelics becomes legal so that we can develop a language code and a framework so that people can start to see these things coming when they do happen. But ultimately, even when we understand the hypnagogic thing, we see in an ayahuasca trip, I've had similar experiences where you can remember things like this. This didn't happen to me, but if someone's father abused them when they were 5 and they didn't consciously remember it, they have a hypnagogic experience on psychedelics which makes them remember it, they can see it, then what do you do? How do you reintegrate yourself into a healthy lifestyle? Ultimately, there are people who come back to psychedelics. I met people like this in Peru. They come back to the ayahuasca experience in order to have the purge, and they come back to it over and over again. And when they come back to their lives in America, they have to get a job and they have to start acting through the rigidity of capitalism and the infrastructures in the material world. And it forces them to let go of the transformative fire that the ayahuasca gave them, because ayahuasca is an external thing. What do you do to carry the integration of the psychedelic experience with you? It's yoga, yoga, yoga. Psychedelics need yoga much more than yoga needs psychedelics. How I'm describing it in my book is in this way. Psychedelics, it's like when we have difficulties in our lives, trying to fix your difficulties through the way that you've always operated is like trying to wash dirt off with dirt. It's like a fish that's stuck in a fishbowl. It thinks that this is all its reality is. And it's the look at how much space. Look how much space I have here. This is such a world in itself. Imagine if someone takes that fish by the tail and shows it around. It goes, oh, there's so much more here. And then dunks it back in. That's an important experience. That's like washing dirt with soap. The soap experience is an alien agent of conception, where now all of a sudden the dirt of your previous reality is being washed by the transcendental experience of a new reality. Problem is, like I said, many people go back to Peru, back to Peru, back to Peru, back to these places that serve ayahuasca, and they keep on having the same neurological experience of the hypnagogia, of seeing what's happened in their lives, of these things that have happened, and they keep seeing it. I know at this point, I know that my father abused me when I was 6, and I have this reflexive fear of authority. I know it's there, but they don't go to a psychotherapist and actually learn how to work it out and integrate it. You know, I don't just mean that yoga is the only way to go. I think that psychoanalysis is an adjunct of yoga, in my understanding. Psychoanalysis relates to vichara, which is self-inquiry, is learning about the subject who's trying to using the techniques of yoga, as I was saying. What often happens with people when they repeat psychedelic experiences, they seek the peak intensity of seeing with this clarity all these things that are obstructing them in the past, but it just keeps piling on year after year. They see it, oh, I know I have to change this. Oh, this is this thing again that I still have to change. You know, you do it 1 year, and then 3 years later, you keep having psychedelic experiences, and every year, it's like, you know, gosh, last year, I kept doing it. I just can't get out of it. I can see it. Psychedelics give us illumination, but not necessarily enlightenment. And this is why what happens with psychedelics is that at first, it's soap that washes off the old reality. But once psychedelics is just a part of your reality, it's always going to have some slightly useful things, but if you lean on an external thing, it's going to turn into it's going to turn into dirt. And then after a while, like so many men that I met in Peru, what was once soap to wash off their old reality is now just dirt. It's washing off dirt. At which point, when you get to the point when psychedelics is just more of the same reality of the fishbowl that you're stuck in, the only thing you can do after that is practice the yamas and niyamas. Practice sacred mindfulness. Practice energizing your energy system by breathing sushumna breath up from the bottom to the top of the crown and then back down through various other kriya pranayama techniques. So that through the practice of yoga, you can bring the ayahuasca transformative experience with you. You can bring the clarity with you. And essentially, at that point, what you're really trying to do is stopping your hands from getting dirty in the first place. Once ayahuasca becomes dirt, because it's the same reality, you can't wash off, there's no new reality for you to explore through ayahuasca, you're just putting more dirt on your hands. At which point, the only thing you can do is stop your hands from getting dirty in the first place and stop doing the actions that are causing you to want to go to Peru to purge it all. And this is essentially what I wanted to get to in this video. Now, I didn't want to make this too long of a video. For now, this is a pretty good place for me to end this. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I hope you guys like where I'm going with my consciousness here. I'm Dustin Cormier, and this is How to Rock Spirit. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys in another episode.